Good morning and thank you for joining us. 9 days into the U.S. government shutdown, President Obama vows that he will not negotiate on the shutdown or the country's debt ceiling while under threat from the Republicans, accusing them of putting the country's economic well-being in danger. House Republican John Boehner said it is the president, not the Republicans, who is risking economic catastrophe. We are joined via Skype by I-24 News Washington, D.C. correspondent Steve Cates. Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yael.
Okay, first of all, President Obama yesterday very strongly worded speech in press. So what are the reactions to his words yesterday in D.C.?
Well, inside the Beltway, inside Washington, D.C., the results are pretty strong. People are fed up, both on the Democratic side as well as Republican constituents, with the shutdown. It's starting to hit them, mostly because they don't know when they're going to see their next paycheck or when they're going to be able to get their next social disability check from the government. A lot of questions being raised, but very few answers.
Now, really briefly, to us minions in the real world, what are the dangers if the shutdown is not resolved until mid-October when it comes to the debt ceiling?
Well, major implications, and that's the biggest worry right now. In terms of how it affects Israel, it could be very serious. In fact, just recently, Secretary of State Kerry pointed out that the fiscal year, which just started on October 1st, raises questions about Israeli aid. Israel was set to receive $3.1 billion this year. It's now in question as to when Israel will get that much needed funding, as well as other countries, up to 80 other countries, depending on U.S. aid.
Now, and what is expected, it seems to be that it's going to take about 10 more days until this is resolved, or so, so people theorize. But what is expected today in Washington? Any further discussions, any attempts to try and resolve this before mid-October?
Well, your guess is as good as anybody else's, Yael, but it's a very, very strong indication that because of this gridlock, because of no response, it looks like finally, there seems to be some room, if not direct offers of confrontation, or I should say negotiation. It looks like there's some efforts being made behind closed doors to reach some type of acknowledgement. At this point, it looks like there may be a settlement where the government would reopen, but it would be for a very shorter time period, maybe 30 days instead of 60 or 90, until the negotiations can be made.
Right. Now, and just to recap, reactions, we can see that the American public is displeased, rightfully so, with the situation. But in terms of the Republican reactions to Obama's speech yesterday, what was the reaction from, House Republicans?
It's very, very strange, especially as a journalist watching this, Yael. And in over 20 years of coverage and news reporting, I've never seen it where there's such this harmonious anchor towards each other. It's hard to define. You would think that at one point, one side would give in because there is such a public outcry. I tell you, I could win a better chance of winning the lottery than figuring out how this is going to end and how soon.
Okay, Steve, thank you so much for joining us this morning and always for following the story for us. Now, we are joined in studio by the co-chairman for the Republicans abroad in Israel, Mr. Mark Zell. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning, Yael.
And by the spokesman for the American Democratic Party in Israel, Sheldon Schorer. I'm pronouncing your name right?
That's right.
Okay, good morning to both of you. Now, President Obama yesterday had some very strong words to his Republican counterparts. Let's hear one of his lines from yesterday's speech.
We can't make extortion routine as part of our democracy. Democracy doesn't function this way. And this is not just for me, it's also for my successors in office, whatever party they're from. They shouldn't have to pay a ransom either for Congress doing its basic job.
Mr. Short, now the president has just said, he's basically saying that the Republicans are holding the country hostage.
And they are.
But in that respect, why does he refuse to capitulate to try and resolve this thing?
Because he's right and they are wrong. Very simple as that. There is a way of doing things. There are laws. There is a way of passing a law. There's a way of discussing. There is a certain law. It's called the Affordable Health Act. If you don't like the law, Obamacare, all right? If you want to change the law, there are procedures for doing so. You make a bill, you have hearings. That's the way that things are done. That's the way it's supposed to be done. Not by putting a gun at somebody's head and saying that if you don't give in to our demands, we will do something as ridiculous as shutting down the government. This is wrong. This is wrong. Now, what these people are doing, they want to show that the government cannot work under a Democratic administration. So when comes the next election, elect the Republicans and things will work. This is a very cynical tactic, and I think the American people are going to see through it, and I think they're going to suffer as a result of this.
Now, Mr. Zell, House Speaker Boehner is basically, there are claims that he is capitulating to extreme factions within the Republican Party, namely the Tea Party, and that he can solve this thing tomorrow if he wanted to. Why is he sticking to his guns?
Well, first of all, I want to get rid of this Tea Party bugaboo, because that really is not what's happening here. If you saw today's Washington Post, Majority Leader Eric Cantor really set out the Republican position very clearly, and he's no Tea Party advocate. Something that Mr. Shore said I need to correct.
Go for it.
Under the United States Constitution, which is the same principle that we inherited from the British way back from the 17th, 18th centuries. It's the Congress, the Parliament, the legislature that has the power of the purse. I mean, they're the ones that control the strings. They're the ones that decide how much the government's going to get. What this president doesn't understand is that it is not a situation where the president sits down, or the king sits down and makes a list of demands and expects the Congress to go along.
Didn't the Affordable Health Care Act already pass? I mean, isn't this already, and this is just a tactic,
Well, first of all, as we've seen from Cantor's article today, the issue is now expanded beyond Obamacare. The Republicans are angry about Obamacare. The people that elected the Republicans, both in 2010 and 2012, and gave them control of the House of Representatives, are angry about the way Obamacare was passed and the way this president carries out his authority. I mean, he is operating as a kind of an island unto himself, and has made a number of legislative decisions, whether it's in the immigration area or Obamacare or in some other areas, where he's done it by executive fiat, without any cooperation with Congress. What the Republicans are saying is, listen, democracy in the United States means you've got to talk. The legislative and executive branches have got to talk to one another. It is not a government by fiat. And President Obama has not learned this lesson. The Republicans are saying, we've been working the last 3 years to try with this president to try to reach an accommodation on these issues. It hasn't worked. We're drawing the red line on the debt ceiling.
Mr. Shore, is this is this true? Is the president refusing to talk?
Absolute nonsense. You have a Congress where the House of Representatives is controlled by the Republicans. If they want to talk, they can talk. This is not the first time that there's been conflict between the Congress and the president. This has happened all through history, and there's a way of resolving it. I'm saying that the way that they are trying to resolve it, by putting the gun and harming the people. What do you call people who harm the government and harm the people of the United States? I can think of a few words. None of them are very nice. They're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah. Listen, this is the Democratic line. The polls are showing that the American public is fed up with both parties, not just the Republicans.
And actually, polls are showing. Washington Post, ABC News conducted a poll showing that the Republicans are faring even worse.
A little bit. 70% of the Americans.
63% find the Republicans responsible. 57% say the Democrats, and 53% say the president's responsible. The American public is justifiably upset about this situation. But we've got though is an impasse that has been building up for the last 3 years or even more in this administration. The president is not willing to talk. It's not up to the Republican. What the president wants to do, and this business about the gun to the head is just as a real nice spin. This is democracy. This is what happens.
But the government is shut down.
It is shut down.
Shut down. And $24 billion a month is what this is going to cost. The Moody's, in 2011, when there was a threat of shutting down the government, Moody's downrated American credit from AAA to AA, cost more money for the United States to borrow. What's going to happen now?
That was a fight over the debt ceiling, and that's what's happening in the next 9 days.
Which is coming up again.
Here the American public is very much on the side of the Republicans. $16.7 trillion debt, and the American public has said, enough.
But Obama didn't do it.
We
It was
cannot
Congress.
spend more than we are taking in. The government has got to act responsibly, and that's why the Republicans were returned to the Congress.
And we're going to move this discussion slightly a bit further. Debt ceiling, yes, definitely that's coming up. We're going to discuss that. But this has an effect also on the entire world, as the president said yesterday in his speech to the nation.
Already this week, I had to miss critical meetings in Asia to promote American jobs and businesses. And although, as long as we get this fixed, that's not long-term damage, whenever we do these things, it hurts our credibility around the world. It makes it look like we don't have our act together.
So sure, dangers of perception of the United States, and we have to say, we're sitting in Israel, we're sitting in the Middle East. This doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. And the thing is that the world is crying out for leadership, and the Western world is crying out for leadership, and the only real credible leader in the world is the United States. And they want leadership from the United States. And how can the president go ahead and give leadership if his own Congress doesn't support him and tries to shut down the government? There is, again, as I said, there is a way of doing it. This is not politics as usual, and this is not a legitimate tactic. Yes, it is legal. But one can be very legal and still be wrong, and very wrong.
Let's talk about the tactic again.
Well, wait a minute. I think that your viewers need to understand that this is the 18th time that we've had a government shutdown in the last 30 years. When the
last one was 1995.
That was the last one. But before that, when the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, there was a Speaker of the House was named Tip O'Neill, very famous Democrat from Massachusetts. He did this same tactic several times.
I'm going to beg to differ. Does it make it right?
No, but it does. It's not. The point is, it is politics as usual. Now, if you understand the situation that the Republicans are in, they don't control the White House. They don't control the Senate. They control only the House of Representatives. When they were sent specifically by the American people in 2010, 2012, with that mission to control government spending.
Where were they for the last 2 years? Why wasn't this done for the last 2 years?
They did do it the last 2 years.
Why do it with a gun in
you
your
remember
hand?
what happened in 2012, before the 2012 election? And it was a Republican-led initiative on the debt ceiling, which they resolved ultimately 6 months before the election, because the president, all the parties realized what could happen to their interests in the 2012 election. So he compromised. He did what a responsible political leader must do. You talk about his leadership, though, in the world. I mean, this is not helping his situation. But his leadership in Iran, or lack of leadership in Iran and Syria and so on, and Libya now, But it reflects on everybody, and can't we also raise the argument, though, and I'm asking you, is Boehner not also acting under political aspirations, trying to move forward towards the elections that are upcoming for the House and the Senate? Absolutely. Listen, I mean, nobody, all the actors in this very serious game of chess are politicians. And they're all worried about the future of their political positions, both the Republicans and the Democrats. And we have a presidential election coming up in 2016. Obama will not be running, but his party wants to hold on to the White House, and they would love to take the House of Representatives. I mean, in 2014, a lot of people are saying that the president's tactics in the current debate about government shutdown and the debt ceiling are aimed at causing public disregard for the Republicans, so that the Democrats can take the House in 2014.
What tactics? The president says very simply, excuse me, let's get past this thing. You are creating a terrible crisis. We can talk about everything, but it is Boehner and the Republicans who are causing this crisis, and the American people will not forget that.
We'll see what the American people decide ultimately in November of 2014. But this president is putting red lines in the like he did in Syria. He's putting red lines now on the government budget and on the debt ceiling.
And the debt ceiling, but I think the pressing red line is the fact, and that's what we're trying to figure out, that within 9 days, by mid-October,
8 days,
8 days, the United States can default and basically, essentially almost go bankrupt.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
It's about to happen.
It will. I will bet that it will not happen. And then eventually, for example, what happened just the other day, Obama's economic advisor Sperling went on the news and he floated something that the president picked up the other day, in fact yesterday, and that was, listen, what we can do is we can have a temporary increase on the debt ceiling for 6 to 9 weeks. And during that time, the parties will sit down and negotiate, as the Republicans have asked that be done. Now, I think that's what's going to happen, because neither party and the White House wants to see a default on October 17th.
Sure, real quickly,
Again,
what do you think?
It just seems like a very cynical ploy on the part of the Republicans. When Boehner says, all right, the debt ceiling is not going to happen, we're going to postpone it, he'll come off as a hero, and I solved the problem. This is this type of cynical ploy, and he's going to try to sell this to the American people, and I just hope the intelligence of the American people realize that this is some bad people who've done harm to
Listen,
us.
Mr. Zell, Mr. Shores, sadly, this is all we have time for. I will have you guys back because this is fascinating.
Let's
okay?
bring it on.
Coming up next, teachers' protests in Brazil turn violent. Before anything else, let's go back to the morning headlines. God, you made me miss it. Good morning. Thank you for joining us and staying with us. Let's say hello and good morning to our one and only Tony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Tony.
Good morning.
What did I miss?
Well, you and many people may have missed, if they were not watching American television, an interview that Israel's finance minister Yair Lapid gave with Charlie Rose on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'm slightly upset because I've been trying to interview Lapid for a while.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
And I'm blonde.
You're blonde.
Charlie isn't.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
okay.
well, we'll send a memo to Lapid's people.
Exactly.
Interestingly, in the interview, Lapid said that unlike Netanyahu, I'm quoting here, that he is a devoted supporter of the peace process. Bit of a jab at Prime Minister Netanyahu there. What he's referring to...
He said that? Wow.
He did say that.
Because he tries to distance himself from the peace process usually.
Yeah, well, basically he's saying that, Lapid's saying that Israelis recognize Israel as a Jewish state, so we don't need authorization from anyone else. It's because
Netanyahu keeps asking for from the
Palestinians to say we're a Jewish state. And also, Lapid says that he evokes that the paper evokes the report on Facebook, a Facebook post that Lapid did, in which he takes issue with Israelis who moved to Berlin.
Right.
I have to say, I agree with him on that one. It's like, what's up with that?
With the Israelis moving to Berlin?
Yeah.
Here, I'll give you the lowdown. It's cheaper to live there. There's this issue, and he as finance minister should know that.
Okay.
Financially it's getting really hard. To do that.
I thank you for filling, because I'm like, I could never get that.
No, I agree. Germany, I hate the weather. Yes, that's the whole history back thing that is kind of bizarre. But yeah, it's cheaper to live there. It's actually cheaper to live in European countries than it is in cities than it is here.
Lapid, take note.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. What else?
Al-Aram, speaking of money, reports that Egypt is now set to seize the funds of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Wow.
Yeah, they've
banned them. They've put them in jail.
Revoked the NGO status as well.
Wow.
So basically, now they're going after the money.
Yeah.
And in a way, it all comes down to money, because without money, you can't fund.
There's also been a delay now in U.S. funds sent to Egypt.
Right.
So
one wonders if who the chicken, egg, chicken.
Exactly. But I'm sure that. Well, let's hope not. But this might just cause a bit more clashes in that ongoing, ensuing,
friction there.
Friction that's going on. Yes.
Well, as you know, a lot of countries and cities around the world try to court what they call the pink dollar to court gay tourists. Israel is no exception. Well,
Tel Aviv's doing a good job.
It is. But if gay travelers are looking to go to Kuwait, they are going to find that they might, or any Gulf country. The papers are reporting that Gulf states are set to introduce medical testing on travelers to detect their gayness and stop them from entering the country. This is something that...
I'm sorry, what type of tests are those?
I don't know, but I know in San Francisco, I think they're developing an idiot test and trying to ship it over to Kuwait.
First of all, I have to say, even heterosexuals in Kuwait have a hard time.
It's interesting to see that they think this is going to, I don't know, increase tourism by saying
not.
no. And they're saying that they're not sure yet if the law or if the test will apply to cross-dressers. So right now they're focusing on...
Anybody who travels to Kuwait from a foreign country is going to have to go through this test?
Apparently, it's a medical. They haven't revealed what the medical test will involve, but everyone will have to go through it. And it's not just Kuwait, but the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, Qatar, Bahrain, I think those. And it's in the press. Who knows if it will actually happen?
Yeah.
But the health minister of Kuwait is basically saying, yeah. This is what we're
going to do.
Yeah. So this is something interesting to follow in the press because we see what's happening in Russia.
I was about to say, are they having tea parties with Putin? Is there those people are speaking to each other and how to go backwards in time?
As gay marriage recedes from the headlines in the American press, now we see this from that corner of the world.
And what else?
Le Figaro.
Le Figaro.
Yes, reports that Alcatel-Lucent, which is a huge French telecommunications company, has announced job cuts to the tune of 10,000 job cuts worldwide.
Wow.
Not 1,000, not 5,000, 10,000. French officials are fretting over this because, number one, it means job losses in France. It's a setback for the French economy at a time when unemployment is
on the rise,
the rise.
God.
And it's a whopper of a number that it seems to have been making a soft thud across all the French media.
Yeah.
And the impact will be worldwide because a company like that, you go to France, you pick up your phone, it says Alcatel on it.
It's like Cellcom or AT&T. One can compare it to companies as such.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and with the European Union sputtering economically, news like that, and we hear about China rising and all that. So this just feeds into the perception, which seems to be more real than a perception, that European economy is
going. Yeah,
has seen better days.
Is going Greek yet again. Okay.
Probably looks better in Germany.
What else?
The New York Post, speaking of economic news, reports that the Reuters chief of digital media, Jim Roberts, sources are saying, is going to be leaving Reuters to head Twitter's new news division.
Okay, so wait, Twitter is opening.
Twitter apparently before they're going to go IPO soon. We know this, but apparently they have in the works a news division, which is enormous news because a social media phenomenon, which is only a few years old, is now poaching top talent from Reuters, possibly even NBC News.
No, Reuters. I mean, for people at home to understand, that's it's like China grabbing the president of the United States to lead it in many ways.
Right.
It's just fascinating to see it, but it's not surprising because I think most people don't realize just how much Twitter, more so than Facebook, has become the provider and generator of headlines.
Absolutely.
Hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, we use it, journalists around the world use it.
Yeah.
And what this says about
it's the first
media,
thing that's quoted. Yeah.
And it's a phenomenon to behold that usually it's the other way around. And what does Twitter have in store after it goes IPO? I think it's like watch out world because they're cooking things up.
Trying to me, it will be fascinating to see also what the reaction would be from Zuckerberg, because I think this is becoming the battle.
He's stealing some of that. Twitter's stealing some of the Facebook thunder. It looks like.
And the thing that it was touted that all the social media networks were, they're social, they're for the people,
right.
But they're becoming moguls. They're becoming information mega monsters that, and once you control information, you control the world.
Absolutely.
In many ways.
In many ways. So we'll be watching what happens on the Twitter news front in the weeks ahead.
Tony, fascinating stuff. Thank you, and we'll see you next hour.
Thank you.
To some breaking news actually coming out of the Wall Street Journal. Iran is supposedly preparing a package of proposals to halt production of near-weapons-grade nuclear fuel. That's a key demand of the U.S. and other global powers, according to officials briefed on diplomacy ahead of talks in Geneva next week. We are joined now in studio by I-24 News senior editor Ruthie Sinai. Good morning to you, Ruthie.
Morning, yeah.
We know very little about this. This was just reported. What do we know?
More or less what you said. The idea is that the Iranians would come to the table with a proposal to stop or at least to slow down their uranium enrichment by to stop buying or producing these centrifuges that are needed to produce this equipment, and that's essentially the major concession that they are supposedly willing to put on the table. There might be, the demands have been many. I mean, the Israeli demands and other countries have been demanding much broader concessions, basically to get rid of all their nuclear, fissile material. I don't see that happening, but as an opening...
The question is, would this be enough for the Americans at the end of the day to maybe say, okay, they're bringing something?
It might be. The temptation is huge. I mean, we've seen yesterday the UK announced that they were already exchanging chargé d'affaires with the Iranians, and there are, the sanctions are kind of, there's a lot of companies waiting in the wings, just a lot of oil companies and other companies waiting in the wings just for this,
switch, to happen.
And so, it may be difficult to withstand the temptation.
To do that. Fascinating stuff. And we will.
I think from their point of view, they're acting very wisely. And
we probably are about to see an Iranian tweet about it in several hours.
Probably. What denying it?
Denying it, exactly. But that said, we will, again, this is breaking news. This was just reported. We will follow it as the day continues. But now let's move on to Brazil.
Right.
Police in Rio de Janeiro have fired tear gas at protesters after a demonstration by thousands of teachers that ended in violence. Let's take a look at the following report first.
The streets of Rio de Janeiro are in flames once again, 4 months after the riots were sparked in the region, this time due to teachers' protests over the poor income.
I am in support of this unified protest. We have to unify to destroy the corrupt. We don't have politicians. We have thieves, scoundrels, villains.
Vagabundos, canalhas.
Thousands rallied in major cities in Brazil in order to support teachers seeking pay hikes. But it seems that teachers' salaries is only a small part of the problem for angry Brazilian citizens who are frustrated for various of reasons of the growing economic gap, the disproportional investment in the upcoming World Cup and Olympic Games, and the rising cost of living in the country.
This is the ball of the World Cup. A cup made at the expense of destroyed families, expelled families, at the cost of indigenous blood, black blood. It's a cup only for tourists, for people from the outside. They will see the shape Rio de Janeiro is in.
With less than a year until the Summer World Cup, frustrations in the tropical country are rising to a new level. The teachers who are busy most of the year preventing violence in schools went out to the streets throughout the night, teaching their students a lesson they will not forget: how to stand up for their rights.
Now, Ruthie, strong pictures. This is the stuff I'm used to seeing regionally here, I have to say, sadly. This is not the first round of violence in the last several months. No. What is behind these protests now?
The question might be what is behind and who is behind. There are some anarchist groups, apparently, one of them calling themselves the Black Bloc.
The Black Bloc?
Black Bloc, yeah. Nobody really knows who they are. But on a more serious note, there is fertile ground for them to be acting on, operating on. Look, the Brazilians, on the one hand, are thrilled with this notion that they're going to be, hosting the World Cup
and then the Olympics. The money is going to be flowing in.
A lot of money, and they're building stadiums and infrastructure and so on, really tens of billions of dollars flowing into the country. On the other hand, they're saying, why can't you bring all this incredible money, invest some of this money in services that we need, health, welfare, education,
right,
etc. And so I think, they're feeling, on the one hand, frustrated, on the other hand, proud. And those who are feeling more frustrated than proud are the ones, we're seeing in the streets. Yes, exactly. Now, there was an incident. The president of FIFA, I think, went out to the city in western Brazil, Cuiabá, I think it's called. He went to see the stadium that was being built there and the progress that was being made. And right in front of his very eyes, there was a fairly violent demonstration, too, of people, taking the opportunity and, some of them grandstanding, but obviously with legitimate concerns. And we need to remember there are 16 million people in Brazil who live below the poverty line, meaning $1.50 income a day.
Yeah, so the protests, they're not without reason in many ways.
No, absolutely not.
But moving on to a completely different part of the world, we're all about, mess and chaos. Moving to North Korea, which put troops on high alert, saying joint U.S.-South Korea naval drills will bring on horrible disaster. Okay.
So again,
that's very strong lingo.
Yeah, but do we take this seriously?
Thank you.
Every few months they come out with these threats, and every time it's, Armageddon and disaster and so on. So now the thing, you always want to ask, like, what do they want, these people?
Yeah.
Like, why can't they just take care of their own internal problems and stop threatening?
Sure, definitely.
And obviously nobody really has an answer. I think there was maybe some hope that this new leader, Kim Jong-un,
But that's the thing. Wasn't he elected and made some changes? And I mean, he came in and made reforms. Now he sounds like his father and his grandfather.
Well, I don't know about these reforms. The fact that he met with, what's his name, Peter Rodman? No, what was his name?
Dennis Rodman, right?
Yeah.
That would
right.
be...
That's hardly reform.
It's good.
I don't know. He probably did some things, but look, they're in such dire straits. This whole philosophy of self-reliance, which has been guiding their being for the last 50, 60 years, has really not proven themselves. I mean, talk about sanctions in Iran. I mean, they're under strict foreign sanctions. They do want some of these sanctions lifted. I mean, it's really, if it weren't so sad, and it is horribly sad because the human rights violations in North Korea are a legend. But if it weren't so sad, it'd be funny. It's like this kid who's having a tantrum and is saying, well, I want you to like me, but I don't really want you to like me, and I'm going to show you. And
there's also this terrifying thing. I mean, I personally can never figure out how dangerous North Korea is.
Look,
is it or isn't it? Is it crying wolf? Obviously, it has the capability of nuclear arms.
It
which
has
is frightening.
it has capability. The capability of deployment is not very clear. But we should remember back in March, they fired missiles and stuff, and some 50 South Koreans were killed. So it's no joke. They do have capability. To what extent they're willing to use it and risk retaliation from South Korea and the U.S.
Or is it just
one would hope that they're not that irrational, but
one would hope that about so many around the world.
You have to wonder. You really sometimes have to wonder. And then bottom line is that sometimes we apply our certain rulers to certain behaviors that aren't necessarily the way they view things.
Very true. Ruthie Sinai, thank you so much for joining us. As always, when we come back, an exclusive interview with Professor Allan Dershowitz about a new survey that found a major shift in American Jewish identity. But first, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. It is still Wednesday. It is still October something 2013.
There have been no shenanigans.
None whatsoever.
None.
2013. I'm still Yael Lavie. You are still Tony Grant.
As far as I know.
And what is viral?
And Prince Harry is still speaking Arabic.
Prince Harry speaks Arabic?
I don't know if he still is, but Prince Harry, Prince Harry from United Kingdom was speaking Arabic at a charity dinner in Dubai.
Let's hear.
Roll that tape.
Please.
شكرا لهدوركم. اتمنى لدبي 2020 الفاسوة الناجحة. Thank you.
Wow.
He never speaks Hebrew.
He is multi-talented.
Really? What a Renaissance man.
I thought all he could do was run around a hotel room in Las Vegas naked.
Exactly, or dress up as a Nazi in costume parties on Halloween.
Right.
But apparently he speaks
He's
Arabic
diplomatic,
too.
and to his credit, he's involved with this charity group that's trying to raise Lesotho.
Lesotho in Africa?
Yeah, like Madonna's trying to raise Malawi. So his country, and these are countries in need of help.
Very much in need of aid. That's a country plagued by, by AIDS, a lot of
terrible
children.
HIV rate, infection, poverty. And so this dinner, I think, was related to that charity. And he's getting into the spirit of the thing.
Listen, to see him speak Arabic.
That's going to be turning some heads in Buckingham Palace.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, let's talk about foxiness.
Foxiness.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
Are we going there? Are we going there? Yeah, we're going there.
Okay. Well, you're looking foxy. What's also looking foxy is Fox News. Fox News. TheVerge.com reports that Fox News is set to debut a new bizarre news deck type newsroom. They say it's bizarre. They're going to have these giant sort of 55-inch tablets in this new newsroom.
Is there video in this?
We don't have video
Okay.
here,
Oh, right.
but it's on, I think, theverge.com, or you can go on probably to foxnews.com
And this
get a
is
preview.
this Shepard's? No.
That's Shep Smith, and he's going to be sort of in charge of this new news operation.
I'm just stopping. I'm looking at the thing behind him.
The
giant iPads, tablets.
they're called big area touch screens, or BATs, and they're
For the love
55
of God.
inches.
We got to go back to us, okay?
Yeah,
We got to go
so-
back to us because this is what we have. Okay?
Yeah, but
This is what we have.
Size does not matter.
Size does matter. I'm a chick. I can
Okay.
tell you. It so does matter.
The important thing to remember here is
Don't
it's all about actually Twitter. Let's bring it up. Twitter and keeping. Fox wants to interface with keeping up with Twitter to report on things as it's happening, to fact check
Right.
it, and also it's a gamble because Rupert Murdoch, it has to be said, tried to do a tablet news
True.
thing,
What happened to
which
that one?
tanked.
It tanked completely.
And he's
the
trying
Daily?
the Daily.
The
I
Daily
think
something it was,
yeah,
or the Daily it was called.
It was.
I think, yeah.
It flopped. So this is a new
Maybe he
attempt
was left with a lot of giant tablets.
and just decided to give them to Shep Smith. I
No,
don't know.
This looks almost comical in a way.
That picture, from that angle, it does.
Yeah.
But
It's like a Philip K. Dick, it's like the Minority Report. And I'm wondering if, they're going to stand there on the air and go like this. And basically, move.
on the
move
video, I
news.
went onto the Fox News
Yeah.
app, and they show people kind of swiping and
swiping in.
It's
Don't they call the journalists behind them now information specialists?
some of them, the ones who are, I guess, feeding the information to the
They're
journalists. and
information specialists.
Information specialists.
Okay,
So no clicking, it's all about swiping.
Fine. Okay. Yes, we're going to stay with our mini tiny tablet. What else?
Things make a lot more sense in Beirut.
Always, don't they?
Always.
Yeah.
Home of a new Shake Shack and the Beirut Film Festival, which has banned 2 films.
Which?
One of them is called L'Inconnu du Lac. Yeah, it's French for The Stranger by the Lake. The reason... yeah.
I'm beginning to understand more. Yes, what's in this film?
Well, there are, at some point in the movie, what sources are saying are naked men. Yeah. I haven't watched the film.
Yes.
But I've seen the trailer, and apparently that was enough to set alarm bells ringing, because we know that many men around the world are not really comfortable with the idea of male nudity unless it's their own. So this is, and Beirut is, they've also banned a film on pleasure marriages. Now the pleasure.
Hold on, what is a pleasure marriage?
Now a pleasure marriage is apparently a politically correct way of saying it's an Islamic one-night stand.
That's a pleasure marriage.
It could be even half a
It's not
night.
actually a marriage. It's just
It's a date with a nice finish.
It's a booty call.
Yeah,
okay.
basically, and there's a film about it. So these 2 slightly risque films have been banned from Beirut, which is supposed to be a liberal.
Some of it, big parts of it are, but I think they're trying not to raise, any kinds of
Hackles,
tension.
yeah.
What else?
Au
Last
revoir.
one, sadly.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir to Patrice Chéreau, who's a great French film director.
Which one? Who was that in here?
Patrice Chéreau.
Patrice Chéreau.
He died, I believe it was yesterday. He was the guy who directed Isabelle Adjani in La Reine Margot, which was 1994. He made the St. Bartholomew Day Massacre sexy by putting Adjani. Yeah. He did.
Always a challenge to make a massacre sexy. That man succeeded.
He rose to the occasion, and a great French cineasta, cinema heavyweight, and he has passed away, and that's making waves in France because it's tough shoes to follow. And
you are so cultural. How do you end up bringing me all these French amazing things?
I had the questionable fortune to spend a few years in Paris. No, it was
yes,
the good fortune.
You poor little you, the good fortune.
And,
but then, on one
you're
hand,
exposed to all that.
as you said to me as you told me, the first hour, that the French are, having these huge financial problems.
They are.
Yeah.
But culture is always
on the rise.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about France.
Interesting to see. Thank you so much, Tony, for this report today. Okay, according to a recent article in the New York Times, the first major survey of American Jews in more than 10 years finds a significant rise in those who are not religious, marry outside the faith, and are not raising their children Jewish. That's resulting, according to the article, in a rapid assimilation sweeping through every branch of Judaism except the Orthodox branch. Earlier, we spoke with famed U.S. lawyer Allan Dershowitz, author of the upcoming book Taking the Stand, My Life in the Law, who also wrote The Vanishing Jew about the same phenomena. Here's what he had to say to us. Professor Allan Dershowitz, thank you for joining us. let's break the story down. This is the first major survey about American Jewry to come out in 10 years. Its aim was to explore Jewish identity. In your expert, quote unquote, Jewish opinion, let's begin by trying to figure out, what does it mean to be Jewish in America today?
A very different thing than what it meant to be Jewish in America 50 years ago when I was growing up. To be Jewish in America 50 years ago was to be discriminated against, to be part of a tribal culture where you knew you couldn't get into certain colleges or live in certain neighborhoods or work in certain jobs. And so pretty much everybody stuck together because we had no choice. We married each other because no one else wanted to marry us. And today, everything is very different. Today, everybody wants to marry a Jew, except apparently another Jew. And today, we can work anywhere, live anywhere, go to school anywhere, and meet anyone we want. And, we're a pretty attractive group of people.
Really? I mean, I love you saying that, but, that everybody wants to marry a Jew.
We're well-educated. Yeah. We're well-educated. We make good spouses. And so we're very desirable. And so don't be surprised if a lot of very interesting, beautiful, powerful, wealthy, well-educated people want to marry us. I predicted all of this in my book, The Vanishing American Jew.
The Vanishing Jew, a fabulous book about that. But in that respect, also in your book, The Vanishing Jew, you predicted it, and this is what's happening, these days for us, coveted, lovely Jews. This research that came out says that 2/3 of Jews do not belong to a synagogue these days. 1/4 does not believe in God, and 1/3 had a Christmas tree in their house over Christmas over the course of the last few years. Now, I mean, is this assimilation, or is it just a transformation of the American Jew?
Assimilation is not the right word any longer. Assimilation is what was done by a small number of people 50 or 60 years ago who wanted to escape the, quote, yoke of Judaism and wanted to move into the Christian culture in order to advance themselves. That's not what's happening. What's happening today is that because Jews are less religious and because there are virtually no barriers to access to the mainstream culture, and indeed Jews are part of the mainstream culture, decisions are being made that look like assimilation, but really reflect a very different phenomenon. It's, what Herzl over 100 years ago called normalization. What he said could never happen to the Jews of Europe is happening to the Jews of the United States. I don't want to make a judgment on it. I'm just making a description about it. And it also shows the failure of the Tsurist theory of Jewish survival, which I wrote about in my book, The Vanishing American Jew, and that is the idea that Jews need Tsurists to survive. We don't have such Tsurists anymore in America. Things are going pretty well for us, and so there is no common thread or common enemy to drive us together. I think there still is a common enemy, but that's not a view that's shared widely among many of the young people.
Maybe all American Jews need to move to the Middle East, then they'll have some tourists. But
let me finish.
Sure.
Finish my point. The common enemy is in the Middle East. That is, the common enemy is anti-Zionism, anti-Israel attitudes. And in my book, Vanishing American Jew, I said there were 3 solutions. Number 1, go to shul, go back to the synagogue. That's not going to happen. Number 2, make aliyah. That is, to go to Israel and become part of the greater Jewish community, in which case you don't have to believe in God. You can be as assimilated as you choose to, but the people you assimilate with are going to be other Jews. And you'll have your Jewish identity defined in another way. So those 2 won't work for the vast majority of Americans. And the third requires a redefinition of what it means to be Jew in America in the year 2013.
No, but isn't there a danger, with those statistics that we've mentioned, and of Jews nowadays, be it not going to synagogues in the United States, or very few of them are doing so, that for their children, that that will basically cause the assimilation that everybody's afraid of. That normalization actually means that the children of those people that today, have redefined Judaism in America will forget about being Jewish.
Well, don't forget about being Jewish. That's an overstatement. I think what will happen is there'll be many, many people in the United States of Jewish heritage who will have a Jewish father or a Jewish mother or a Jewish grandfather. They will identify as Jews in certain ways, but not in other ways. And if there is ever a return of anti-Semitism, they'll understand their roots. If Israel were ever in grave, grave danger, they would probably be supportive. I think Jews are not leaving their Judaism out of anger. It's not like in Israel, where you have the great gulf between the very religious and the very unreligious, and the very unreligious, the secular Jews, really in many ways hate the religious obligations that are imposed on them by the state because of the merger of synagogue and state in Israel. I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think the secular Jews have any contempt for the religious Jews, the Orthodox Jews. They admire them. They like them. They just don't follow their prescription. So it's not a great tension like it is in Israel. It's just a kind of falling off. Today, people are just dropping out of synagogues because synagogues aren't interesting enough for them, don't provide a kind of challenge intellectually or in other ways. Israel has become, for many American Jews, an embarrassment. Unfortunately, I think that's a tragedy, but I think the hard left is winning that fight and is turning people against Israel in some ways. And there needs to be a third way. The shul and Aliyah are not sufficiently working to keep Jews Jewish today in America.
Now, you meant that's fascinating stuff, and you mentioned, I want to touch real briefly about what you said at the beginning of the interview, and that's interfaith marriage. I have many friends in the United States, Jewish friends, who are, who marry...
Not interfaith marriage. Let's not use that term. It's interfaithless marriage.
Interfaithless marriage.
Jews have no faith, and they're marrying people who have no faith who used to belong to other religions. So it's not interfaith marriage. Jews aren't getting married to Catholics in order to become Catholics, or to Protestants in order to become Protestants, or to Asians in order to join their culture. They're just marrying whoever they meet in college, whoever they meet at the law firm, whoever they meet in the business that they're no longer excluded from. They're marrying them, and they're usually having a Hanukkah menorah and a Christmas tree or nothing. But it's not interfaith marriage. It's interfaithless marriage.
Interfaithless marriage. And yet, those friends I've mentioned have a problem at home when the children are born of fighting about which holiday to celebrate, be it Hanukkah or Christmas.
Not the ones I know. The ones I know don't celebrate any holidays.
Okay.
Or if they celebrate a holiday, they celebrate it culturally. So you have different friends than I do. My friends don't have fights over their children at all. They don't care. Okay. That's not an issue in their lives.
Now, in that regard, well, again, a lot of light shed about this issue. Just to culminate this completely, what do you think is the future of American Jewry?
Different from the past, and it's the responsibility of the Jewish leadership to make the new type of Jew feel more comfortable with his or her mixed identity, because that's the reality. It's not going to change. We're not going to change this demographic dramatically. It's going to be the wave of the future. And as I said, I wrote about it and predicted it in The Vanishing American Jew, and this survey just reconfirms 15 years later what I said was going to happen.
Definitely. Professor Dershowitz, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us, being with us every morning, and sticking with it. I'm going to shut up. We are joined, by Daniel Rothman of The Economy magazine, and you are here with some punk economic news?
Yeah, well, we met a guy named David McWilliams, who's an author and economist and punk economist, actually, and we did a story on some of what he's doing.
And we have that story to show you. Hold on.
Somebody clever, now I can't exactly remember who it was, whether it was Einstein or Roy Keane, once said that the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, this is exactly what Europe is doing. The more austerity we have, the less growth.
It's not every day that you come across a world-renowned economist like David McWilliams, but he is one of a growing number of economists responding in creative ways to the economic climate of the day. McWilliams, who calls himself a punk economist, is a hard-hitting critic who knows how to push buttons.
If we all consumed like the United States, we'd need 5 worlds to satisfy that consumption. So either we reduce our consumption, or there's going to be some conflict.
When global markets crashed in 2008, and millions woke up to the stark reality that the rules of the economic system were benefiting the few at the expense of the many, it led to the birth of a number of protest movements. From the Indignados in Spain to Occupy Wall Street and others around the world, these mass movements started to wonder about the economies they were living in and why they were crashing. What was going wrong? Another response led some economists to set out in making the discipline of economics more accessible in order to inform the huge influx of people seeking answers. Documentaries such as Inside Job and animated YouTube videos such as The Crisis of Capitalism started appearing in the public discourse. Suddenly, the once boring but wholly important field of economics became the hottest subject, and one Irish economist was among the vanguard in bridging the economic knowledge gap.
So, Daniel, what is punk economics exactly, other than what seems to be a 9-hour lecture on the web?
Yeah, it's, so basically what happened was McWilliams and his friend Mark Flood got together and they said, people need to learn about economics, and they're not because it seems so boring, but it's incredibly important because it
I think the world has shown us why. Over the course of the last
certainly the last 5 years have beat the message home that economics affect you in your everyday life, and so they turned to cartoons. They turned to animation as a way to engage people in the conversation, and the punk side of it is that it's for everyone, that it's kind of taking this exclusive field and saying, actually, everyone has a voice in this.
Cliff Notes, like economy for dummies in a way?
Well, he's actually very careful to say that they don't dumb it down, they make it accessible.
What is it? These are not the same guys behind Freakonomics. Remember Freakonomics?
No, it's the same sort of trend. It's you can see it around the world that people are trying to figure out ways to open up the conversation because it's clear that the economic systems we're living in are not exactly working for everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's to say the least. Now, has this gotten a lot of attention? There are people, you can see this on the web, right?
Yeah, you can go to YouTube and type in punk economics or David McWilliams, and it'll come up. They've so far got about 500,000 hits on their videos.
Is that a lot? That's the thing.
It depends. If you're Justin Bieber, no. If you're fighting uphill to convince people to take a look at economic theory and what's going on in the world, it's not a bad number at all.
I mean, you clearly are, you're an expert on economics. Well, that's your field, but
ish.
Yeah. Do you think it makes it accessible? If I were one, because for example, I read Freakonomics. I understood parts of it I didn't. And still, I am a smart person. Is it accessible? Does it break it down? Does it make it, for the simple folk?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest strength that it has is that it takes audio learning and visual learning and puts it together and makes both of those ways in the same experience to engage with the subject. So yeah, I think it really does do a good job of bringing these theories that's, these terms that you're too afraid to ask, what is a GDP? And,
I've been dying to ask that for years. But yeah, what is a GDP? Don't. Yeah, but that's the type of stuff you almost did. Can you do it in a sentence?
Is gross domestic product.
Of course.
But
of course. Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for now.
But in that respect, you feel that it does do the work. And that's something that you featured on the Economy Show, right?
Yes, it's on the Economy Show, and the Economy Show's on at 7:10 every day here, Jerusalem time.
On I-24 News. Lovely. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today.
You.
And now, more people from I-24. We're joined by the Culture Magazine correspondent, host, and the one and only Odette Gruber.
Morning.
Good morning. Have you had your coffee?
I did.
Because I sound like I didn't. Just
no,
now.
no. It's I only had my first coffee.
Right. How many do you go for?
There's like the second coffee to really wake me up. I haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay.
But I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I can always slap you. But you're here to tell me an amazing, amazing story. And first, we're going to look at a report.
We have a report.
You have a report, and we can sip the coffee when we watch the report. There we go.
Nudity has always been a central part of the arts. But a new exhibition at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris takes a new look at the history of nude art by gathering all male nude artworks.
I think that this kind of exhibition would have been impossible 5 or 10 years ago. Now, after 7 years running the Musée d'Orsay, in a city like Paris, one of the most permissive cities in the world, we're finally being allowed to run this exhibition.
Almost 200 naked men are represented in artworks created from 1800 to today. Among them are some well-known pieces such as the Barberini Faun, David LaChapelle's portrait of Eminem, and Ron Mueck's Dead Dad. The pieces cover various male bodies, from the perfectly proportioned muscular neoclassic forms to the more imperfect modern interpretations.
During the French Revolution, male nudes represented a return to the Republic and virtue, whereas today we are more moved by homoerotic aesthetics.
Modern audiences are often immune to controversial work, but this grouping of exposed male genitalia did manage to cause a stir, raising the question, why does male nudity bother people more than female nudity?
There is still a prudish streak around, but it's now being broken down because all the moral inhibitions are falling away one after another.
Perhaps this new exhibit will challenge visitors to rethink their concepts of the naked male body.
Well, Dad, this wouldn't work in Kuwait, would it?
I think not. I think not. Even in Israel, I'm afraid this would have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I think that Paris is the place for this exhibition at the moment.
And why is it generating so much talk? I mean, you know,
why really?
No, seriously, because
no, really, I wonder.
You want to know?
Yeah.
What
do you
think? Why do I think? No, I do wonder, why is female nudity throughout the ages and in art so much more accepted than
all right? So
to
put things in order. It isn't. Historically, it isn't necessarily more accepted. In the Renaissance, the male nude was just as accepted and was even, at the same, at least at the same level of considered the same level of perfection.
Society.
But certainly in the last.
Why? I think I know why.
Oh, so.
You want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
I think it has to do with men. And I think that many large populations of men in the Western modern world are homophobic.
That could very well be. That could very well be. This exhibition, though, is far from homophobic.
Clearly.
And homoeroticism is pretty much everywhere there.
It celebrates, the beauty of the male body.
Certainly.
Okay.
I can. First of all, of course, I apologize for being way overdressed for this item, but
you completely
it is really drawing a lot of attention. And this isn't the first show, the first exhibition. This is really, let's say it was inspired by an exhibition in Vienna from last year that got a lot of attention because I don't know if you remember the picture of the three
football players.
Yeah, the three football players.
This was the picture. Or this is a picture of people we know?
Yeah, these are three French football players, and this was the picture that was used for last year's promotion. So it was hung in all of Vienna, and it got a lot of attention outside in the street.
Completely. Everything hanging out.
Everything hanging out. And after a lot of after complaints and stuff, there were red triangles that were strategically located on the poster.
Yeah, on the parts
So
defeats the purpose.
It does get a lot of attention. It does bring out of people. It does bring out of them their true face in a way because
it makes me wonder. First of all, it makes me wonder if do we have any figures as to how many men are going to see this exhibition? Is it more attended by women? Is it do men fear that if they're if they go and because really I think that's a lot. It's a lot to do with phobia in many ways.
Yeah.
But that's my theory. But
We don't have the figures, and also sexual preference of the visitors is currently unknown.
Unknown.
But it is, for now at least, it seems that the organizers of the exhibition wanted to shake up the French bourgeois a little bit, and it looks like they're doing a good job.
They've managed to do it, or did. Fascinating stuff. All the stuff, everything that you put can always be always be seen on the Culture magazine.
The Culture magazine every day at 4:10, Jerusalem time. And on the web, there are past shows are on the web.
And past shows, and you can always see naked men there. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are moving onwards to India. The movie Blue Jasmine was not released in India. That's Woody Allen's new movie. Was not released in India over the weekend as planned after the director, Woody Allen, refused to accommodate the Indian government's mandatory anti-smoking ads. To hear more about it, we're joined on the phone from India by film critic and deputy editor of The Hindu, Bhardwaj Rangan. Good morning to you. Bhardwaj?
Hi.
Yes, how are you this morning?
I'm good, thanks. I'm not able to hear you too well, though.
Okay, I will speak slowly and try to enunciate every word. Just to recap, Woody Allen's movie, Blue Jasmine, banned in India. Why exactly? Explain to us again.
No, it's not been banned in India.
Sorry, not released.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry, it has not been released. Why has it not been released?
Yeah, it has not been released because the censors here, they insisted on a smoking PSA to be slapped onto certain scenes that depicted smoking. And Woody Allen did not want to do that.
Now, what are those ads?
And so he said he'd rather have his movie not released than to release it with the smoking PSA.
Okay, explain to us, because we don't, around the world, what are those ads that Mr. Allen was so opposed to? What happens when one puts them in a film?
Well, imagine the movie screen, and you'll have at the left-hand corner, you will have a small text saying cigarette smoking is injurious to health. So it's really a small text, but when you look at it from the viewpoint of the creator, it is also a violation of the frame.
Right. So every time there's a scene of somebody smoking, there will be a little line that comes below it saying that smoking is bad for you. Is that basically what those ads are?
Smoking and drinking.
Smoking and drinking. Now, I've been to India. I love India. Do those ads have an effect on smoking in the country?
I don't think so.
Okay. How is the public responding to, well, first of all, is this the first time that an American director or any director refused to screen his film in India because of those ads?
Yeah, I think this is the first time this has come up because there have been films of directors, even the art house directors like Wes Anderson, whose film Moonrise Kingdom was released here with one of those text things, And he didn't object, and the film was released. So I think Woody Allen is the first film that has come under this year.
So wait, Moonrise Nation, fabulous film by Wes Anderson where there was a lot of smoking going on in several scenes, had those lines in it, and Woody Allen is the first one. Is there, is censorship that strong in films in India? I mean, is smoking and drinking the only censored thing, or, are other things warned against?
No, this is the initiative of Union Health Minister who was there between 2004 and 2009.
Right.
Most ministers like to pick up some pet causes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this smoking and drinking was this minister's thing. So he decided that he wanted to, eradicate smoking at least from the screen, if not from the streets. And so one of his moves was to have this rolling text. And yeah, so the thing is, it's been going on since then. So, but when it comes to scenes, strangely, when it comes to things that actually cause death in a more violent fashion, things like guns or, we don't have any such problems. We don't have any problems with those.
And that can be shown very, very openly, obviously. I think that's actually a problem also in the States, I have to say. Bhardwaj, thank you so much for joining us. I will send you a pirate copy of Woody Allen's new film because you should really watch it. And thank you for being with us this morning. Okay, that's it for this morning, folks. Visit us on the web or on our Facebook page, I24 News. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for another morning edition to start your day every single day. Thank you.